After playing Sakhal for a few hours now, it's clear that there are some considerable differences between what we thought and what we now know. And here I'm going to give you 10 things you should probably know about Sakhal, so when you jump in, you can make snow angels instead of becoming one. If you liked the video, please leave a like or a subscribe, it really helps me out. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Just a quick heads up, I have quite a few member videos if you want to check them out, including an uncut walk through Sakhal. Now, although you don't spawn with any food at all, you do start with a knife, which is something we don't really have on the other maps. The knife gives you a fighting chance right from the get-go, especially because resources are reasonably scarce early on, so you definitely take what you can get. Next up, spawning on the coast doesn't really lock you into one path. What I mean by this is, although Chernarus expects you to go northwest and Livonia expects you to go south, whether you stick around the coast on Sakhal or venture inland is entirely up to you, and with boats you can even head to other islands if you feel adventurous. You don't really have to do one thing to get geared the correct way quickly. That being said, most of your time will likely be spent on the main island. It's a huge chunk of it and there is a lot to explore. But while you explore, you need to know a few things. Firstly, there is no rain on Sakhal, but don't let that fool you. Blizzards will get you wetter than Enrique Iglesias. Just because there's no rain doesn't mean you can ignore the weather. In fact, you probably have to pay more care to it here. Although it feels like the snowstorms don't hit as often as the rain in Livonia, when those snowstorms roll in, you'll need to be equipped or sheltered because they can freeze the balls off a buffalo, the marbles off a moose, beaver off a beaver. But whether you're cold or warm, you'll always need to drink, and one of the quirks of Sakhal is these springs. Instead of the usual blue wells, you have to find natural springs for fresh water, but they are far and few between. If you're planning to stay hydrated, learning where those springs are is essential. Don't expect to stumble across them easily. They are hidden away, making exploration extremely useful, but don't worry, there are multiple other ways that you can hydrate as well. One of these ways being the snow. However, heavy metal poisoning from snow is no joke. I think it's definitely one of the worst illnesses to experience. It's horrendous, and I love it. It hits you quite quickly. You start to experience deafness, which sounds like you've been deeply submerged underwater, and there are visual things, and it's just not pleasant. But it is fun. But there's also going to be another change to how you get geared. For example, you probably won't be relying on police stations as much as other maps along the coast. Instead, you'll get some decent weapons, and the spotter, in civilian areas. This is a nice change because with there only being one police station every few towns over, it encourages you to explore the towns for useful weapons, and the spotter. And because of how the towns are designed with the verticality, it's actually quite interesting. And speaking of towns, there are lots of unique designs and remixes of old designs. Blue police stations, for example, different colored houses, themes, designs, structure, furniture. It really does feel unique. And yes, you can see some older buildings here too, but there are lots of new interiors to explore and they are extremely well crafted. But now let's move on to the big boy. Let's talk about the volcano. This isn't just a scenic spot, it's dangerous. Not only does the thing boast some of the best views in all DayZ, but the bowl can actually cause you damage if you entered it. This is going to be a really fun way to sacrifice players on some maps as the gas rips the skin from your soul. There's also a risk getting up there, considering there's not really much cover, so getting to the top is a risk itself, but one I can see many people taking. And with the heat comes the cold. And the thing about the cold is you never really get enough clothing around the coast to be comfortable. You just seem to be able to slow down the rate at which your temperature drops. This means you're always checking the insulation of clothing, making sure you're dry and weighing up the trips. But you're not just going to be traveling from fire to fire, because there are other ways to control it. But one of the biggest impacted things is food, because almost all food is frozen, which seems to stop it from rotting. I'm quite a decent amount of hours in right now and haven't had a piece rot yet, so either I'm super lucky or they're preserved. Rotten food can still spawn in though, but again, you don't need a fire to defrost everything. It seems as though keeping them on your person will defrost them with body heat over time, but depending on the item, this can take a while. But to find out more information about DayZ, click here, or for something else, click here. And as always, Until next time.